Namaste.
Namaste. We begin a new series called the Sarathi, and this is going into a new area or domain post Samagram. In Samagram, we looked at the individual well-being, components of an individual. Um, what does it mean to be healthy, and what is the Indic lens towards health, towards food, towards well-being, wellness, right? Having given this foundations, the next big question that we need to answer is, okay, this is how one can be at an individual level, or also with respect to social interactions when we speak about yamas and niyamas. And then how do we then start taking up leadership roles in the society, in service of the society? And Sarathi is an attempt to look at the Indic lens towards leadership. There are quite a few things that we need to cover when we speak about leadership. And this is the exploration and the hope that we will be looking at through Sarathi module, right? So, what do you think, Namrata? Why is leadership important in today's times?
Yes, very important question for today's times. I think leadership is the single most thing that is drawing us apart from a generation that is increasingly being tech oriented, technology oriented, and impacted by technology. We see that increasingly the gap between what tech can do and what a human being can do or be is the gap is getting really reduced. So in these times, I truly believe that it is important for us to go towards what is most human. And I think learning to lead others with a sense of conviction is something that is eternal and which no technology can ever replace.
Hmm.
Having said that, the seeds of these leadership skills cannot be sown directly only in some MBA colleges or when one
Yeah.
takes up executive positions. Some seeds need to be nurtured right from very very young ages, because we assume that we are only leaders in our professional lives. However,
Hmm.
leadership doesn't just stem from a professional vantage. We are leading multiple initiatives, whether we know it or we don't. We will be leading our families eventually. We will be leading smaller projects that we look after. So I think going from this idea of being a learner to a leader not just also for others but also leading oneself, one's own life, right? I
Hmm.
think some of these principles or the idea of leadership itself holds very very eternal impact and relevance for our children of.
Absolutely. And when we speak of leadership, it's often thought to be a position. Like you said, I think you mentioned it. It's to hold a position or power. But power without understanding oneself and without understanding consequences, what would be the right way to wield that power, is actually going to be self-destructive and also harm others, right? And so what are we trying to do here? We're trying to say, I think children or young minds today need to be taught about leadership, need to have spaces where they can engage in what leadership is in dialogue, and also hope to develop those skills, because in the future there is going to be a very important need for each one to step up in their own contexts as their own leaders in their own smaller worlds. Imagine each one of us inhabit a world. Each one of us have to play a leadership role in various ways. Unless there is a space to nurture the leadership within, one cannot expect one to directly be ready to take that role after a few years.
Exactly. And yeah, just one last idea on this is leading would therefore not just mean knowing what to think. I think
Hmm.
we've been quite plagued by some, not traditional theories or not native theories on leadership in our own land, which seem to give more importance to knowing what to think, right? A very analytical approach towards leadership. Whereas I truly believe that most traditions will guide us towards how to think. The thought itself is not so, the outcome of any, text or tradition, but how to think, what are the intentions or the inner motivations of decision making of any leadership choice or activity is given a lot more importance than the decision itself. So I think, having set this context on, why leadership for our children, let us dive straight into our very important and, I think, something that is very close to all of us. We all would have gone through some of these stories as young children, as parents, as teachers, and I'm talking about none other than the Panchatantra. Yes, I would invite Harry to give us a small introduction about the story of Panchatantra, and then let's look into, some of the details or the context or some principles that we can draw from it.
Sure. Panchatantra. So the word itself holds the meaning for what it means, right? Pancha, five, tantra is to do with technique, strategies, methods. All right. Now, commonly, what is the practice? Why do we read Panchatantra or the books that is prevalent? What does it say? Usually, you see the cover of the book. It reads moral stories from
Hmm.
Panchatantra, or let's say lessons from Panchatantra. Now,
Yeah.
this is where something interesting in my own study of the Panchatantra, I realized yes, it could be used as a text for morals, but it's doing a very big disservice to the text itself because fundamentally it's a text for leadership, statecraft, and governance. But the beauty is, it has been introduced in the form of stories where stories of animals and their interactions, through that drawing out those fundamental learnings.
It's
And
very
the punch,
interesting that animals and various natural contexts have been used as tools, isn't it,
right?
Hari? Why do you think that would have been the case?
You know, very simply, the tradition or the Indian knowledge system was not something that was agnostic to nature, always saw learning as a continuum of nature and life. And so there is always something to learn from all of life, including animals and plants, right? That includes statecraft and leadership. That's the most fascinating part of the Panchatantra, right? And the most important learning to draw from this is through the stories. It's not just about how we carry ourselves, how we speak, which is to be understood as what leadership is. It's
Mm,
something to do with decision making, something to do with our own inner, ethics, behavior, value systems, how we go about approaching it, right? How we deal with a situation, so on and so forth. So that is more fundamentally what leadership is about, and which is what Panchatantra draws out through the fascinating stories it has in the form of animal stories.
yes. I think, the very context in which it might help to draw out the context or how the Panchatantra itself evolved. I think, what is very well known often is, the smaller stories. But who's telling the stories and why is it being told? If you could, draw some light on that, that might also help us understand this text a little better.
Sure. So Panchatantra is said to have traveled quite a bit, and it has taken new forms as and when it moved. So we have a lot of, I'm sure you would have heard of Aesop's fables,
Yes,
which is
absolutely.
again, yeah, the it has a lot of stories, and we use it for moral stories purposes, but it's very similar to what the Panchatantra has to offer. So as it's given here, it has moved all the way to Persia, Arab, Europe, Russia, China, Indonesia. And that's the extent to which this has moved and this has inspired people, right? Now, and the continuing from what we already spoke, the stories are in itself ethical heuristics, right? As we discussed, it's speaking about how to take decision. It's giving us techniques and quick ways or tools to make decisions and address situations, right? So how
Yes.
do I trust someone? How do I respond to betrayal? When do I act and when do I not? These are very interesting questions we don't usually talk about for whatever reasons, but these are being addressed through the Panchatantra stories.
Yeah. And I believe that it was brought out in a context where there was a teacher and he had a couple of children or students who were in leadership positions but not so equipped to actually make those decisions. If you could uh, share a little bit about the story itself. Yeah.
Yes. So the this is like how the Panchatantra came about. The story has to give us a sense into how entire Panchatantra was created and for what purpose. That will
Hmm.
kind of give us a sense of why at all did we need this text. So there was once this really important prosperous kingdom called Mahila Ropium, and the king of Mahila Ropium, he had been very successful in his tenure as the king and made a lot of success and made the people happy, in fact, fulfilled and happy. But there was one issue when it came to knowing who would be the next king. As
Hmm.
he's aging, any king would have this very important essential question on who would be the next king and who would be you know um, ready to take on the responsibility. And it's a very big
Yes,
responsibility to be a king.
indeed.
So he had three sons: Ugra Shakti, Bahu Shakti, and the third son also,
Pleasure.
Ananta Shakti. Three
Yeah.
Shaktis: Ugra Shakti, Bahu Shakti, Ananta Shakti. All three of them, though their names suggest they are powerful, they might have the strength, but they were a little dim when it came to their intelligence. They were a little bit slow. They
Mm.
tried times to send them to the Gurukula, tried different ways of, sparking their intelligence, but for whatever reasons, it didn't take off. All three
Mm.
of them were known to be a little playful and childish in spite of becoming teenagers. So this was the case, and this had to be addressed. Of course, the king usually has this sabha and speaks with his ministers to get some ideas and brainstorm. And when he did that, some of them said, send them away on an expedition. They'll get exposure, come back. Somebody said, another minister said, maybe just, uh, you know, put them in a room in isolation and see what happens. Let's see, let them spend time alone and see if that works. And so on and
Mm.
so forth. Different ideas were coming. And then this one minister suggested, I know a teacher who could be the right fit for transforming these kids, right?
Yeah.
The exact thing, transforming these children to be
Mm.
ready to take up the leadership role.
Yeah.
So when the king inquired, who is this person? Could you please call him? And then was invited Vishnu Sharma. Vishnu Sharma is a scholar. He is known to be a very, very advanced scholar, wise, well known, and well read person. But he
Mm.
was quite old, almost in his 70s. So when he
Right.
was invited and when the leader spoke about his situation and troubles and worries, Vishnu Sharma said, be rest assured, I will take care of it. Give me 6 months. In 6 months, I will give you back a ready, transformed three princes for you.
Wonderful. Mm.
All right. And also, he threw a challenge saying, in 6 months. So, when he said this, the king, okay, offered, I can give you whatever you seek. if you want wealth, this, that, it's usually the thing, because it's yeah, something in return, so that there is also a phala or a fruit of the action.
Hmm.
The Vishnu Sharma was like, I'm already old. There's really nothing I would enjoy even if I have all of this.
Right.
So instead of all of that, let me just do it for the sake of doing it. I like this challenge. In 6 months, I will succeed. If I don't, I will change my name. This was the challenge that Vishnu Sharma, took up. And in that 6 months, what he taught is nothing but the Panchatantra. Through the
Oh,
stories, through the conversations around the stories. And mind you, Panchatantra is a nested storytelling methodology, which means one story and another is connected.
right.
There is a nested storytelling method. So one story will have two characters, and those two characters will have another story. So within the story, there is a story.
Hmm.
It's
That's
an
very,
interesting.
very interesting.
Exactly. And this will spark a certain memory and intelligence to keep up with the storytelling, um, let's say, storytelling process. It is a
Yeah.
process because there is a story within a story within a story. And unless you keep up with it, you will lose sense of where it started and who's actually narrating the story and for whom and for what.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is what the Panchatantra is, and guess what? After 6 months, the three of them were ready to be leaders.
Very, very interesting, um, context or premise on which this is happening. I mean, even in today's times, we see so many situations, whether it is the level of the government, whether it is important positions of power. Often, certain important positions are conferred on people. However, they may not have the inner intelligence to actually do due justice to the role that they are so conferred with. And very, very relevant, situation that we have even in today's times. And
Absolutely. Which is why the main point or the most important thing to note here is it is a tool which is rooted in the Indic principle of how learning has to be memorable, it has to be experiential, it also needs to be emotionally engaging, right? And all of this is possible when you take the storytelling approach, isn't it? And
absolutely. And I think because it was stories that were given to children, right?
mhm,
Fundamentally, if you just look at it from a child psychology perspective as well, children actually relate with animals very deeply. They
yes,
still they understand animals and the animal world, even the plant world, a lot more vividly in their younger ages. It's very sad, of course, that as adults we have, slowly becoming distant and disconnected from the animal world. But as children, that innocence and that ability to connect with, the animal kingdom is a lot more. And it's just brilliant how Panchatantra taps into this very essence of child psychology to bring out principles of leadership, through
exactly,
stories by animals. Because again, the entire idea is to externalize certain decision making principles onto animals. As
correct,
we said, even in the Samagram modules, in the earlier stages, it's very difficult for children to associate the aham bhavam, right? Like, what is me, what is not me, what is this world, how am I different from this world? Those, hard, solid individualizations or individuation ideas are not still rooted. However, we need to bring in some of these ideas, some of these important, pearls of wisdom. We need to bring it across to them. So how best to bring that across to them? Through the stories, because stories offer windows that directly go and assemble into the child's psyche very, very effortlessly, I would say.
absolutely.
Yes. So
Yes.
yes.
So Given this context and intro to Panchatantra and setting the importance for it and what it truly holds as a knowledge text, I think it's important to go into what Panchatantra what are those, each of those, and what does it represent. It will be important to speak about it, and then go into stories, specific stories, to bring out the essence of each of those tantras.
Yes. So, we could draw light on the five tantras. The first being Mitra Bheda,
Mhm.
the second being Mitra Labha, the third being Kakolukyam, fourth is Labdha Pranasham, and the fifth is Aparikshita Karakam. Right? Maybe a small intro to each of these, Hari, if you could help
Sure,
us.
absolutely. Mitra Bheda. Mitra stands for friend, right? And Bheda is difference, division. Um, Bheda is like sort of comparison. These are some different descriptions of the word Bheda. So
Yes.
basically, these are stories that speak about how friendships get broken, or how
Mm.
someone else could create a certain friendship to break.
Mm.
Right? What are those conditions and contexts in which a friendship could be, and what are decisions that can break friendships? Those are some important things covered here.
Both ways,
Yes.
right?
Oh,
What
yes. It's not
what contexts create a gap among best friends,
correct.
and what decisions that a so-called leader or a friend makes can also
Exactly.
create that distance. Wonderful.
Exactly. So very well said. So it's not just the external context, but what can individual decisions also have as consequences in terms of friendships we have. That's Mitra
Mm.
Bheda. Mitra Labha. Mitra again, friend. Labha is to gain, is to get, acquire. So this is speaking about how do we get friendship? How do we gain or secure important friendships? And this is important as leaders. Now, many times this idea of a leader who is an individual with power and has other people to just get work done is very dysfunctional. What do you think, Namrata?
Absolutely, because fundamentally, we live in a society which is not just some hierarchical structure that is operating throughout. A leader is fundamentally a human being, and if the leader doesn't know how to, respond or connect with another individual at the level of being just a human, I think the leader has really failed. And therefore,
Exactly.
the idea of being able to tap into friendliness,
Hmm.
and not just a very transactional approach to this world, I think is very, very useful.
Indeed. One, like you said, for the leader itself, leader needs good friendship to keep himself going, but also for that leadership role, I feel good friendship is very important for, and if to be for a leader to be effective, to make the right decisions, right? And a good
Yeah.
friend is someone who would guide, and we see
Yeah.
this in many of our epics also, be it the Mahabharata. There are friends who are very loyal to someone who knows that this is going wrong or this shouldn't be, but
Mm.
still cajoles and continues to support,
Colluding. Mm.
alluding. Whereas there is another friend who will say, this isn't done, this isn't done, this isn't the way, and offers an alternative, and doesn't
Mm.
worry about, doesn't feel insecure about the friendship, because friendship is secure, and leadership here requires something, it demands something, and this is the right thing to do.
Very interesting. Very interesting idea. Yeah.
Yes. So this is Mitra Labha. Coming to the next idea, that's Kakolukium. Kakolukium. Kaka Uluka. So Kakam, which is crow, and Uluka, which is owl. Now tell me, Namrata, are crows and owls natural friends or natural enemies?
Um, Jungle wisdom says that they are really not very good to go with each other. They are not really good
Exactly.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So there are sometimes conflicts created between two enemies.
Hmm.
A leader also has to think in present. So if you even think of it in a geopolitical context, it
Yes.
would be helpful for one country to see, okay, if I do this policy, if two enemies are fighting amongst themselves, this might be good for me for this particular time, right?
Hmm.
Or let's say one particular enemy is sort of attacking my borders. I can do something to irk the enemy of an enemy,
Ah, very
or get
interesting.
that enemy of an enemy to come on my side or ally with me, so that enemy can fight the other enemy, some
Wonderful.
such. So there are different ways of looking at this, and very
Mm.
interesting stories are given in this particular tantra to look at the idea of creating conflict between enemies. Is this useful? What situations is this useful? What situations to use it, when not to, so on and so forth. So interesting ideas discussed here.
Wonderful.
The fourth one is labdha pranasham, losing what was gained. Now, unless we speak of these ideas, leadership only has a rosy, sort of template or idea that it's all about success, it's all about profit, it's all about making disproportionate wealth, or getting more power. Power
Mm.
comes with huge cost.
Yes.
Sometimes, even in Mahabharata, you know what happened,
Yes.
right? The day before you went to play that gambling game, you had it all. In just the span of that gambling game, you lost it all,
Mm. Yes.
right?
So,
So
yes,
go ahead, Namrata.
gives us a lot of perspective on what is one really ready to put at stake for each
Hmm.
decision.
Yes,
And it may not always be a situation where there is only gains.
correct.
In the financial sector, we have this idea of an opportunity cost of some
Hmm.
decisions, right? By choosing something, what am I actually willing to let go of? However, very often we are not alive to some of these opportunity costs, or actually letting go of something in order to choose something else. Very important idea to be, very cognizant of. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. And in this, um, examples or stories when all of it was lost is taught to children. So children also know that when
Mm.
we need to tread carefully, when we need to take more attention, give more attention, be more careful, cautious, etc. Right? And then finally is aparikshita karakam, where rash deeds or acting without really thinking through and what it could cause and what are the dire consequences that it could cause. Those are the stories that will be dealt with in the fifth tantra. Why do you think this is important, Namrata? Why should we speak about actions that we do without thinking, especially to children?
Very important, because I think we don't realize the consequences or the implications that action or inaction
Hmm.
by each of us can lead to.
Yes. Yeah.
There are, I'm not able to recall the exact person, but what we understand today is that we've got the power of the gods, but
Hmm.
not really having the wisdom of the gods today. Just think about the statement, right? We are able to travel across the world a lot faster than we used to earlier. We're able to
Yes.
communicate uninhibited ways, right? We are able to do so many things. Technology has virtually improved the way in which we have lived manifold times. So
Hmm.
it seems to have humanity seems to have this idea of power like never before. But do we have the wisdom? Do we have the wisdom to know the implications that our powers actually yield on the world, and
Yes.
more so the unintended implications or the
Mm.
unintended consequences. We are
Yeah.
seeing this at levels never before seen, especially with respect to the environment. So I think this is a very, very, I think, fundamental, idea or principle that, don't just think about your immediate outcome that you are hoping for as part of your decision, but also know that you are situated in a context that's larger than you and your kingdom or your, state, nation, community, whatever that may be. Know that there
Mm.
are layers and universes that are larger than yourself. I think very, very
Absolutely.
essential idea that our young minds need to know.
Indeed, indeed. I also liked how you said it's not just about doing the right action, but what is the cost of not acting when you need to. That is
Yes.
also very, very important to speak about, especially when in the context of leadership and um, statecraft or governance for that matter. So
Absolutely.
wonderful. I think very, very interesting five tantras, and I'm always fascinated every time I look at it. And every time we discuss, there's always new to capture and discuss about the
Yeah.
five tantras.
Yes. So we look at each of these tantras a little more in detail. We look at some stories. We look
Sure.
at some contemporary ideas that some
Mm.
of these tantras hold and how they are actually being played. We can actually become very blind to our current realities and assume, oh, Panchatantra is just some text in the past and has no relevance today. But we will be very, very blown to see how each of these tantras are being used, whether we know it or not, in today's times at the level of statecraft, at the level of national security, and so many other instances. So stay on, stay tuned to the coming sessions. Look forward to meeting you and learning together. Namaste.
Namaste.